The door slammed so hard the windows rattled, and I felt the life I'd built start to splinter like glass. That was the moment everything I thought I knew about love and family shattered. Before we begin, I invite you to subscribe so you won't miss the next story that might brighten your day. I'm Veronica Steele, and this is the story of how I went from discarded to owner. Stick around, I think you'll want to hear this. A scream of metal tore through the evening air, a car backfiring down the street just as Veronica Steele's world cracked apart. She nearly dropped the watering can, the clang echoing across the porch. Her phone, tucked in the pocket of her faded jeans, buzzed like an angry wasp. The sound felt wrong, urgent. Veronica fumbled it out, breath catching, when she saw the name glowing on the screen: Teresa, her eldest daughter, the one she'd given everything for. A voice message. 32 seconds. Her thumb hovered. Something inside her whispered don't, but she tapped play anyway. Static, then Teresa's voice, sharp, cold, a stranger's voice wearing her daughter's skin. I can't stand Mom any longer. Once we transfer the house, we'll move her to a facility, no more pretending. The porch lights flickered as if the whole world had gasped. Veronica's knees buckled. She gripped the railing, splinters biting into her palm. It's almost done. Teresa continued, her tone businesslike. Mark says the papers will clear next week. After that, we're free. A low male voice. Mark murmured agreement. Then came the final blade, Teresa's soft, deliberate laugh. The sound was worse than the words. Veronica's chest tightened. The air smelled of wet soil and betrayal. She forced herself to breathe, but every inhale felt like glass. Across the street, a boy pedaled past on a rusted bike, calling to a friend. The world kept moving, ignorant of the quiet implosion on her porch. Free, her daughter wanted to be free of her. Veronica's mind flashed like a strobe. 3 jobs at once, the wedding ring she'd pawned for tuition, the nights she sewed until dawn so Teresa could have ballet shoes and private school books. Every sacrifice now twisted into mockery. Her phone screen dimmed. She replayed the message, forcing herself to hear every syllable again. No mistake, no misunderstanding. The hum of cicadas grew loud, a deafening chorus around the words echoing in her skull. Mrs. Kaplan next door stepped out to water her own plants, lifting a hand. Evening, Veronica, she called. Veronica's throat locked. She gave a mechanical nod, hiding the phone behind her back. Mrs. Kaplan lingered, curious, but the silence from Veronica's porch finally sent her back inside. The message ended with a soft click. Darkness settled over the yard. Veronica's thumb hovered over delete, a reflex born of years cleaning up after others, erasing evidence. Swallowing hurt, not tonight. She saved the file, heart pounding, and whispered to the cooling air, her voice low and fierce. You think I'm too old to fight? A beat of silence. Watch me. Somewhere a door slammed, and the sound felt like a promise. The porch light burned long after sunset, but Veronica never noticed. She sat in the wicker chair with the phone on her lap, replaying the message again and again until the words cut like shards of ice. Her mind wandered back, not to revenge, not yet, but to the years that had shaped this very night. Morning light had always found Veronica before the alarm. For decades she'd risen in the dark, the sound of the old sewing machine her only companion. She could still feel the vibration in her fingertips, the endless hum as she stitched gowns for women who never learned her name. When her husband died in a roadside accident, Teresa was only 10, Lily 6. Veronica swallowed her grief, tied her hair back, and took on 3 jobs: alterations at a downtown boutique, cleaning offices after hours, and hand-sewing wedding dresses for extra cash. Mom, you don't have to, little Teresa once whispered, sitting cross-legged on the floor with a coloring book. I do, Veronica said, threading a needle by lamplight, because you deserve a life I never had. Those nights had a rhythm, the smell of starch and coffee, the sharp bite of fabric scissors. Veronica would guide her daughters to bed, then return to the machine, telling herself every stitch was a brick in their future. She remembered the day Teresa received her college acceptance letter, how her daughter leapt into her arms, squealing with a joy that filled the whole house. Veronica had wept silently, knowing the tuition would crush her. But she sold her wedding ring, the last relic of her late husband, and took out a loan against the house. Someday I'll buy you a bigger home, Mom, Teresa promised, hugging her tight. You'll never have to work again. That promise had warmed Veronica through countless cold mornings. Years later came the wedding. Teresa wanted it elegant, crystal chandeliers, a string quartet. Veronica nodded, though the numbers gnawed at her. She worked double shifts, even on Sundays, and pawned the antique silver set she'd inherited from her mother. During the first dance, Veronica stood in the shadows of the reception hall, aching with pride and exhaustion. When Mark, the groom, took Teresa's hand and kissed her forehead, Veronica thought, she's safe now. She has love and stability. My work is done. How cruelly wrong she'd been. A gust of wind pulled Veronica back to the present. The porch creaked beneath her as she rose and stepped inside. The house smelled faintly of lavender and old wood, a scent she'd always found comforting. Tonight it felt like a stranger's home. On the mantel, family photographs smiled down, Teresa in a graduation cap, Lily holding a prize-winning science fair ribbon, Veronica in the middle, arms around her girls. She stared at those frozen faces, the warmth of memory souring into something bitter. What changed, she wondered. When did love turn to calculation? Her phone buzzed again, a text from Lily, the younger daughter. "Hi Mom, just checking in. How was your day?" Veronica hesitated, then typed back, "Quiet, I'll call tomorrow." She couldn't bring herself to share the poison she'd just heard. Not yet. She walked from room to room, touching the furniture she had polished for years. The house wasn't grand, but every chair, every quilted curtain carried her sweat and history. This was more than property, it was proof of a lifetime of sacrifice. And now Teresa planned to steal it with a forged smile. Veronica stopped at the old sewing machine in the corner of the living room. The metal was cool beneath her fingertips. For a moment she imagined her mother's voice. Calm, steady strength doesn't always roar, Veronica, sometimes it waits. The clock struck midnight. Veronica squared her shoulders, a flicker of something sharper than grief rising in her chest. She didn't yet know what she would do, only that she would not let anyone decide her fate. Dawn crept across the curtains, laying pale stripes of light on the living room floor. Veronica hadn't slept. The phone with Teresa's message rested on the coffee table like a loaded gun. She brewed coffee strong enough to bite, hoping the bitterness might steady her. Outside, the neighborhood stirred. A garbage truck clattered down the street, a dog barked twice, and silence returned. The ordinary sounds only sharpened the unreality of what she'd heard. Could I have misunderstood, she wondered for the 100th time. But she replayed the voice note once more. No mistake, Teresa's words were deliberate, her laugh unmistakable. That afternoon, Veronica forced herself into her usual routine. She swept the porch, trimmed the roses, even walked to the small grocery for bread and milk. At every step she noticed things she'd once ignored. Mrs. Kaplan called from her garden. "Morning, Veronica, you're up early." Veronica managed to smile, couldn't sleep. The older woman peered at her. "Something on your mind?" "Just thinking about the girls," Veronica said lightly, though her chest felt heavy. Mrs. Kaplan gave a sympathetic nod, the kind neighbors reserved for unspoken troubles. Signs of betrayal surfaced like weeds after rain. 2 days later, the bank phoned. "Ms. Steele," the clerk said carefully, "we received a request for a new power of attorney listing your daughter Teresa as an authorized signer. We need your confirmation." Veronica's pulse thudded. "I never signed anything," she replied. The clerk hesitated. "We suspected as much. Would you like us to freeze the request?" "Yes," Veronica said, voice crisp. "And please note that in writing." She hung up with trembling hands. The proof she dreaded was arriving faster than she imagined. That evening, neighbor kids chased a ball into Veronica's yard. One little boy, Illy, paused to pet her cat and asked, "Why do you look sad, Miss Veronica?" She crouched to his level, forcing a smile. "Just a lot on my mind, sweetheart, go play." The innocence in his eyes ached like an old wound. 3 nights later, another sign. Returning from the grocery store, Veronica spotted Mark's silver sedan parked outside the county clerk's office long after business hours. Through the tinted glass, she glimpsed him handing an envelope to a woman in a blue blazer. Carol, the name flitted across Veronica's memory, Teresa's cousin who worked at that office. She stayed in the shadow of a lamppost until the car pulled away. Back home, she opened her mother's old cedar chest. The one holding every important document, deed, insurance papers, the original will. She checked each page carefully, nothing missing, yet her thoughts sharpened. Panic would help no one. She needed knowledge, allies, a plan. The next morning she dialed the number of an attorney recommended by a church friend. Michael Quinn answered a calm baritone. "My name is Veronica Steele," she said, surprised by her own steady tone. "I believe my daughter is trying to take my house without consent. I need to know my rights." There was a pause, then Quinn replied, "You've done the right thing calling me. Let's meet. Bring any documents you have. And keep every message, don't delete a thing." After hanging up, Veronica poured herself another coffee and stared out the window at the tidy street. Her heart ached, but beneath the sorrow a colder resolve was forming. She whispered to the empty room, "I've given you everything, Teresa, but you won't take me." The old sewing machine caught a ray of morning sun, its metal gleaming like a quiet ally. Veronica rested her palm on it, feeling its familiar coolness. In that stillness, she understood. This battle would be fought with patience, proof, and the unshakable strength her daughter had forgotten she possessed. Rain slicked the morning streets when Veronica stepped off the bus downtown. She carried an old leather folder pressed against her chest like armor. Inside were photocopies of her house deed, her will, and every bank statement she'd saved for decades. Attorney Michael Quinn's office sat on the 10th floor of a weathered brick building. The hallway smelled faintly of coffee and varnish. When she entered, Quinn, a tall man with silver hair and a voice as calm as winter fog, rose to greet her. "Mrs. Steele," he said, shaking her hand firmly, "let's talk about protecting what's yours." Veronica slid the folder across the desk. "My daughter's trying to take my home," she said quietly. "I need to make sure she can't." Quinn reviewed the documents, his brow tightening. "You've kept excellent records, that helps us. We'll lock your title behind a legal shield. No transfer can happen without your signature and a personal appearance. And we'll flag your bank accounts for unauthorized access." He met her eyes. "Do you have proof of their intentions?" Veronica unlocked her phone and played the voice note. Teresa's cold words filled the office, every syllable echoing against the walls. When it ended, Quinn leaned back, jaw tight. "That's more than enough. From this moment you're in control. Keep quiet. Let them believe nothing's changed." Veronica nodded, a strange calm settling over her. For the first time in weeks, she felt like she could breathe. The next days unfolded like a chess match. First, the financial fortress. Veronica visited the bank and changed every password. She removed both daughters as beneficiaries and added a trusted charity, the Golden Haven Foundation, as the sole inheritor of her estate. The banker, a young woman named Sarah, raised an eyebrow. "Are you sure about this, Mrs. Steele? It's a big change." "I've never been more sure," Veronica replied. Next came digital vigilance. At a discreet electronics shop, she purchased 2 small security cameras disguised as picture frames. With Ali, the neighbor boy, chattering nearby about superheroes, she installed them quietly in her living room and hallway, both feeding to a secure cloud account. Then the paper trail. She went to the county clerk's office unannounced. The receptionist stiffened when Veronica asked for Carol, the cousin who worked there. Carol arrived, eyes widening. "Aunt Veronica, what a surprise." "I need to review my property records," Veronica said, her voice pleasant but firm. Carol's smile wavered. "Of course, let me pull those up." As Veronica scanned the screen, she caught the flicker of panic in Carol's expression. A half-completed transfer request sat in the digital queue, Teresa's name glaring back at her. Veronica printed the evidence without a word. That night the sky cleared, a hard moon glowing over the rooftops. Veronica brewed tea and laid out the documents on her kitchen table like battle plans. She thought of the years she'd been dismissed as gentle, harmless, almost invisible. A sweet old lady people underestimated. But she knew the strength in patience, the sharp edge of silence. In the corner her old sewing machine gleamed, a sentinel of every sacrifice she'd ever made. She touched it lightly, remembering her mother's words, "Strength doesn't always roar. Sometimes it waits." Before dawn she rose, dressing with deliberate care. A crimson silk blouse, black slacks pressed to a razor crease. She pinned her silver hair high and applied a single stroke of red lipstick. In the mirror she saw not a weary widow but a woman sharpened by love and betrayal. "You wanted a quiet victim," she murmured to her reflection. "Instead you woke the fighter." Her phone chimed, a message from Teresa, "Dinner this weekend. We have some exciting plans to share." Veronica smiled, a slow, cool smile that never reached her eyes. "Perfect," she whispered. Saturday arrived bright and deceptively calm. Veronica spent the morning polishing the oak dining table until it shone like still water. Sunlight spilled across the floor, catching the quiet gleam of the hidden cameras she'd installed days earlier. Every movement felt ceremonial. The placement of silverware, the careful folding of linen napkins, the fragrant simmer of beef stew on the stove. By noon she had changed into her crimson silk blouse, the same one she'd worn when she fortified her bank accounts. Its deep red seemed to pulse with a life of its own. She touched the old sewing machine for luck, then waited. At precisely 1 o'clock the front door opened without a knock. Teresa breezed in first, her husband Mark behind her. Their smiles were wide, but their eyes darted with a flicker of nervous anticipation. "Smells wonderful, Mom," Teresa said, setting down a bottle of wine. Veronica returned the smile. "I thought we should have a proper family lunch. There are a few people I'd like you to meet." Teresa's brow pinched. "People." Before Veronica could answer, a firm knock sounded. Attorney Michael Quinn stepped inside, followed by a uniformed police officer and a representative from the bank. Their presence drew a visible jolt from Mark. "What's going on?" Teresa demanded, voice rising. Veronica remained seated, hands folded. "Please, everyone, take a seat. We need to clear the air." Quinn placed a sleek tablet on the table and pressed play. Teresa's own voice filled the room, cold and unmistakable. "I can't stand Mom any longer. Once we transfer the house, we'll move her to a facility. No more pretending." The recording continued, Mark's quiet agreement, the soft, cutting laugh that had haunted Veronica's nights. Teresa lunged for the tablet. "That's private, you can't." The officer stepped forward, blocking her. "Ma'am, this is legal evidence." Mark's face drained of color. "Teresa," he began, but the rest died in his throat. Quinn laid out the next layer of proof: the fraudulent power of attorney request, the half-completed property transfer, the bank's documented attempts to access Veronica's accounts. Each page slid across the table like a verdict. "I don't understand," Teresa stammered. "It's a mistake. It's your signature," the banker said evenly. "And your cousin's login from the clerk's office." The silence that followed was heavier than any shout. Outside, a neighbor's dog barked once and fell quiet, as if the entire street were listening. Veronica finally spoke, her voice calm but unyielding. "I have given you my life, Teresa. I worked through nights you'll never know, for your education, for your wedding, for every chance you ever had. And this," she tapped the papers, "is how you repay love." Mark shifted, eyes on the floor. Teresa's breath came fast. A cornered animal's rhythm. "We were desperate," she whispered. "Debts we didn't know what to do." "Desperation doesn't excuse betrayal," Veronica pleaded. The officer cleared his throat. "Mrs. Steele, would you like to press charges for fraud and attempted theft?" Veronica looked at her daughter, once a bright-eyed child clutching crayons in a storm-lit kitchen, now a woman pale with shame. Her heart ached, but her voice remained steady. "No," she said, "not today. But legal steps have already been taken to secure my property. You will never touch it." Teresa flinched as if struck. Quinn added, "Protective orders are in place. Any further attempt will result in immediate action." Veronica rose, the crimson blouse catching the afternoon light like a banner. "You thought I was too old to fight," she said quietly, meeting Teresa's eyes. "You forgot who taught you how to stand." The room held its breath. Mark swallowed hard. "Let's go," he murmured to his wife. They left without another word, the front door clicking shut like the final note of a long, bitter song. Veronica exhaled, the weight of weeks sliding from her shoulders. Outside, the roses she had tended for decades swayed in a soft breeze, their petals bright against the deepening sky. The battle for her dignity was won, but the story of her freedom, of what she would choose to build next, was only beginning. Evening settled slowly over the quiet street. After the door shut behind Teresa and Mark, Veronica remained standing, her palm resting on the smooth wood of the dining table. The house felt different, lighter, as if a long-held breath had finally been released. Attorney Quinn gathered the last of the documents and gave her a steady look. "You have every legal safeguard now," he said. "No one can touch your property or accounts without your approval. If they try again, we'll know." "Thank you, Michael," Veronica replied. Her voice was calm, but beneath it she felt a trembling relief. Today, the truth finally spoke louder than the lies. The banker and the officer offered polite nods before stepping into the fading light. When the door clicked shut for the final time, silence wrapped around Veronica like a soft blanket. She stood there, breathing it in, the scent of stew and polished wood mingling with the evening air. Over the next week, Veronica moved deliberately, not as a woman fleeing pain, but as someone shaping a new life. First came the letters. With Quinn's help, she rewrote her will. Every asset, the house, her savings, even the tiny antique silver set she had once pawned and later bought back, was left to the Golden Haven Foundation, a non-profit that shelters elderly people abandoned by their families. When Quinn asked, "Are you certain you want to leave nothing to your daughters?" Veronica's eyes held steady. "They already had everything I could give," she said. "This time, the gift goes to those who will truly honor it." She also requested one last clause, a public statement of truth. Teresa and Mark were required to sign a notarized confession acknowledging their fraud and publicly retracting every false claim about her mental health. Within a week, that statement appeared on the same neighborhood forum where Teresa had once spread her quiet poison. Life began to bloom again in unexpected ways. Veronica joined a senior arts community across town, a sun-filled complex with open gardens and a small studio for sewing and painting. On her first morning there, she met Nora, a 72-year-old retired dance instructor with a laugh like wind chimes. "First day jitters," Nora asked, offering a cup of tea. First day of the rest of my life, Veronica replied, surprising herself with a genuine smile. Days found a new rhythm. Morning walks through dew-bright lawns. Afternoon spent teaching neighborhood kids how to sew, their chatter a melody she hadn't realized she'd missed. Evenings dancing with other residents, the music low and warm. For the first time in years, Veronica felt time expanding instead of closing in. 6 months later, a letter arrived in Teresa's familiar handwriting. Veronica stared at the envelope for 3 days before opening it. Mom, it began, I don't deserve your forgiveness, but I need you to know I wake every day regretting what I tried to do. Therapy has shown me the cruelty of my choices. I am so sorry. Veronica read the letter twice. Her heart ached, but the wound no longer bled. She wrote a single reply. Teresa, I forgive you because carrying anger only harms the one who carries it. But forgiveness is not the same as trust. My life is peaceful now, and I intend to keep it that way. I wish you healing, but I will not return to the past. She sealed the envelope with a steady hand. One golden morning, Veronica paused before the tall mirror in her new apartment. The woman staring back at her was no longer the one who had trembled on a porch with a phone in her hand. Her silver hair framed a face alive with quiet strength. Her posture was upright, her eyes bright. The crimson blouse, her silent battle flag, hung nearby, freshly pressed. 67, she said softly to her reflection, and finally free. Outside, Nora called from the courtyard, dance class in 10 minutes. Coming, Veronica answered, her voice light. She stepped into the sunshine, the scent of blooming roses following her. The world was wide again, filled with possibility. Veronica's final thought, as she joined her friends beneath the morning sky, was simple and unshakable. True love never seeks to own. Dignity is the wealth no one can steal. I'm Veronica Steele, and my journey taught me this. Dignity isn't given, it's defended. Forgiveness frees the heart, but protecting your worth is what keeps it whole. Have you ever had to stand up for yourself, even against someone you love? Share your thoughts below. I'd love to hear your story. If this touched you, join our community at Loving Truth Stories. Hit subscribe so you never miss the next true story of courage and justice. Together, we can keep these lessons alive and inspire others to stand strong.